Cannon asked if on fleek was still a term that the kids were using. And I said, I don't think so, but I have been called on fleek before, and it was quite a moment. Don't worry. No one's ever referred to you as on fleek. So,
because I recognize that I am the age that I am. You just haven't acknowledged how old you are.
I call it relating to my humans that I'm raising.
That's one way to do it. I'm Josh Sigman.
And I'm Brynn Rouse.
I'm a mortgage guy with a passion for money, business, and elevating my game. Brynn is my co-host. She's my friend and marketing director for my mortgage team.
That's right. I'm a marketing girl, a mama of 3, and wife of 1. And like Josh, elevating life, business, and relationships, well, it's my jam.
This season's topic, elevate your game.
What do you want?
Do you want to push personal limits, find joy, be more present?
Be a better parent, have a sexier marriage, make more money, save more money, start your own business, develop a hobby, or strengthen important relationships?
Impact the world, be a better boss, or create a stronger business? Then you are ready to elevate.
And this is the place to do it.
Are you ready? Sigman Sense Season 3, elevate your game.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
We are. Sigman Sense. Here we go. So
let's do it again. Roll back the tape.
100%. We're excited to be here. We've got a really cool segment, I guess is the best way to phrase it, planned. But the coolest thing that we've done, because we are hip and trendy folks, is now we have a shorts page only. So for all of you that get a little tired of listening to long form content
or don't have the time. Yep.
We now have a shorts page. So
1 minute increments. You can nail that.
Well, that's part of it.
Yep.
Not all of it. So so the episode will select the best 3 to 8 minutes of the episode. Throw that up on shorts, and that way you can get a daily dose of whatever you're looking for. We're super excited about that. So if you haven't yet, please subscribe to Sigman Sense. Obviously, like that's a great place to start. But also go to Short Sense and start subscribing there, because that's where you'll get your daily shorts and just daily doses of content that we make for you. So we're super excited. We have lots planned. So this run of episodes that we are going to put together for you is about elevating your game. So this episode, I think, we need to unpack that. We need to unpack like what is elevating your game? What does that look like? What are the areas? Why do we need to do this? How do we need to do this? Just answer all the questions, right? Yep. So we kind of broke it down for you. I think we're going to do 3 areas. So the 3 areas that you must be elevating your game at all times are business, your business world, yourself, which is your self-growth, your self-care, making sure your mindset is on point and what we can do to better our mindset. And then our personal life. The 3rd area is personal life. So the way that differs from yourself is your personal life is going to be your marriage, your kids, your relationships with your friends, the way that you interact, in social settings.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to this. And I don't know how long we spent, but a long time trying to figure out what this next run would be about.
Yeah.
And, you'd ask like, why would we talk about this? And I think it's pretty straightforward. You look back at the last 2-3 years and mental health issues are up.
Well, I think let's pause there for a second. Where are we? Like, where are we in time?
Well, here we are.
Let's talk about where we're at.
Yeah, this is a full 2 years removed from the beginning of COVID, right? So we're here in the end of first quarter of 2022. And, you've got a very rapidly changing world, right? So you say, to start with, you've got a lot of isolation for a lot of people, some chosen, some not. So a lot of people work from home. A lot of people want to work from home that don't get to. On top of that, you've got if you look back the last 24 months, you had something like 30 or 40% of every US dollar ever printed was given out and created in the last 24 months. So which is mind-boggling. Like go back to like every dollar ever made, like 30 or 40%, something like that. And so you've got a weird radical spending habit that you look around. You look at there's a major supply issue in damn near every area that you can think of. So from consumables to produce to gas. To cars, to houses. Let me just
tell you how significant this is. So when my nephews come into town, I do curbside pickup at HEB always, but when they come into town, I do a really fun order of all kid-related food, so they can just have a blast. And they came in, last time they came in was late November, and then they came in again for spring break, so early March. I literally clicked the same cart, like went to my orders, clicked the cart, reorder everything. It was $55 more for the exact items.
And what is that as a percentage compared to the previous bill? Like,
oh gosh,
what was the total bill?
140.
So 55 is, like wow. I mean, that's 30-40%. That's crazy. Yeah. Okay. So where is it coming from? You got rapid. I mean, let's just go down the whole list. Like, there's a lot of problems right now. You got Ukraine and Russia. Is still a big active issue right now. That side spins into shortages with gas. So you have kind of a nationwide average around $5. Some places less, some more. $5 a gallon though is crazy. It's in effect. There was a joke. I saw a little meme that said, "It's crazy when gas prices are so high that's a life decision every time you pull up to the gas pump. Like, you're going to eat this week or you're going to fill up your tank." And there's some truth to that, right?
Well, it's a real conversation. So our boys play baseball. They have tournaments that are in Bernie and Kerrville. And normally Randy and I drive separately. He'll take Weston early because they have to be there an hour early. I'll come later. And now it's like, do we really both need to take our cars?
That's right. Or drive to work, or can you work from home?
Huge
things like
thing.
that.
Yeah.
So you keep going down the list, and one of the things I started with, and because it's top of my mind these days, is mental health issues. Like, for real, there's lots of depression. The obesity rate of children is up. Suicide rates are up. Like, there's a whole lot of things that are going not great in the world today, as great as the world is, right? And so when you go back to the title of the series, which is about elevating your game, what I think about is, I feel that most people give too much energy to things they can't control, and they don't give enough energy to those things that they can. And it doesn't mean that you don't acknowledge things that you can't control, but you're either working on it and improving and have a plan around what you know, or you're just hoping shit works out. And generally speaking, things don't work out always. And so when I think about elevating your game, like, let's just start with business as an example of where this might entail. Like, I think a lot of people go to work and they get the same job and they retire from the same job 25 years later, not because they love the job, and not because they've climbed the top of their position at their company, but rather because they've resigned or consigned themselves to the fact, like, this is as good as it gets. Right.
Or they're not there for 25 years because it's fulfilling their every passion of what they want to do. Right. Like, that's rare. It's rare for people to really love what they do.
A lot of young people have some of this area, right, where, hey, I'd rather be on the beach and make pina coladas if I can pay my bills. Why not? I don't think that's a smart play forever, but there's some truth to that, right? And then you go to the next area, which is, why are people, like, literally, you read articles in the last 24 months about obesity rates of children have gone through the roof. It started with COVID when, people were eating at home mainly, basically anything that was just cheap as could be, because a lot of people lost their jobs, right? So anything that was basically white or brown is the cheapest thing in the grocery store, so that's what you buy, and so a lot of kids gained weight.
But also sports were canceled.
Sports were canceled on top of that. PE was non-existent for smaller kids.
They don't have PE.
So all those things added up to create this extra problem. Well, it turns out this day and age, being a kid and having any kind of social media at all, people feel judged, and so you've got depression rates are going up, and so you say, well, what are we doing to work on self and things like that? And then you take it a step further into, there's an article I read years and years and years ago about something like only 1 out of 100 men will read a full book after age 18.
I've heard that before.
Right. 1 out of every 100 men in the United States will read a full book after age 18. That's kind of nuts to think about. So whatever education they got, from school is done for the most part, and then the rest of it, you're hoping they learn the right crap from the right feed on social media, right?
Or the right people.
Or the right people that they surround themselves with, right? And so when you think about elevating your game in general, what I look at is like, I think we can all be better, and I assume that you can have it all, and I believe that you can get more from your job, more from your relationships. You can give more to your job. You can give more to your relationships. You can be in better shape. You can be in a better relationship with God. You can be in a better relationship with your spouse and kids, and have more, do more in less time, and be happier. So that's kind of the thought process that you kind of dive back into. It's like, well, why is it that there's always a top 10%? Like no matter what. And like, I don't want anyone to think about just money here. So don't just check out if you're not the top 10% of income earners. That's not the point. There's a top 10% of athletes. There's a top 10% in every school. There's a top 10% in body fat percentage. There's a top 10% in whatever area you look at. And then there's everybody else. But what the disparity between that top 10% and the 90% to me is astounding. And the question then goes back to, what's the top 10% doing differently? Or were they just like lucky, or were they gifted, or did they just have the right gene?
I do think there's a ton of that. Like it's not because of anything that they work on.
God forbid you should do the same thing for them for 30 years.
It's right? Because of, like you said, like luck, or they're gifted in some way.
It's easier to resign the fact and say, oh, I just don't have that gene, or, oh, I'm just not that smart, or, I didn't get, I wasn't raised by the right family. It's easier to discount it than it is to do something about it. Right, but I don't think,
the thing is I don't think that it's an intentional discount. I think it is a firm belief system.
Oh yeah, that's taught and retaught and retaught.
Right, like it's not that people, it's not intentional. It's not, they're not using it as excuses. They are, but they're not psychologically. It's a fundamental belief system that it's not for them. They're missing something. They're missing something in their life, or they don't have that gift.
Yeah, and it really goes. But it's funny. I just got a gift, a poster from a friend of mine that I haven't seen in a long time, and it says the top 1% of the world do what the other 99% aren't willing to do. Mm-hmm. And it's not that they're not capable of doing it; they're just not willing to do it, right? And so,
or maybe don't know how, or where to start.
Yeah. I would just go back to, let's just start with, you're listening to this or watching this with some smart thing that's in the palm of your hand. Right? So don't tell me you can't get the damn information. Like, there's a fucking way. You want to figure out how to make more money, save more money, decrease your hours, have a better love life, read more. Like, just ask those questions instead of ask stupid questions of your smartphone, right? Like, don't say you can't get the information. There's definitely a way. It's funny, like, I'll make fun of myself for a second. My dad never really taught me anything around cars, right? And I've always been in awe of people that can literally take apart an engine, put it back together. And I think that's pretty cool.
Me too. Pretty cool. I fall in that boat.
But I can't say that I don't know how to do that, because if you like literally YouTube how to change your brake pads, literally how to change your oil, like there's about 1,000 different videos that give you a step-by-step, and you can do it by the make and model of your car. So I can't just say, I can't handle wrenches. It's like, well, shit, just YouTube it and somebody will teach you how to do it real quick. Right?
My daughter is a big believer in YouTubing car problems and then going and trying to fix them herself.
I love that attitude.
I love that spirit. Yeah, fantastic.
But so I think I've got to argue with that one point of, they just don't know how to. Well, they just haven't pursued it. Now, what I would say is that there is a difference between I don't know how to and I didn't know it's possible. There is a difference between that. Like I do believe
how to and
I didn't know it was possible. Meaning, I don't know how to sell shit, so I just won't try. Versus I didn't know it was possible to make this much money as a side gig, right? Okay. I didn't know it was possible to make this much in the job that I do. I didn't know it was possible to lose this much in this period of time. I didn't know it was, so that whole glass ceiling thing, I do think is a real thing.
That is, okay, yeah.
And so, looking for and surrounding yourself with people that do have and achieve more in any area will absolutely break that glass ceiling. So now it's just a matter of pursuing more information, pursuing more conversations to get there. But don't tell me that you don't know how to, because you can find out a way.
True. Very, 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 very true. And I even find myself, like, when I'm pondering something, I'm like, why?
You ponder?
Yeah.
I love that.
Oh, yes, I ponder. Okay. I'm quite the ponderer.
So you don't have a beard, but do you like stroke your chin when you ponder? Because I
twirl my hair and I play with my necklace, which makes you crazy. But I'm like, why haven't I YouTubed this? I bet there's a million things.
Yep.
Like it's like, okay, come on.
Yep.
Look alive.
Yep.
And you totally lost my train of thought, and I had something really good.
I'm sure it'll come back to you.
Well,
let's just kind of unravel this then. So let's talk about.
I know what I was going to say. So so we're talking about, you got to ask the right questions. You have to, be around the right people. Where does that begin though? What if you find yourself, if someone listens to this and they look up and they're like, man, I have a bunch of losers around me.
Yep.
Like, what do you, like, where do you go? Where do you start?
Okay. So let's just go back to the basic point. Everyone knows right and wrong. I don't care if you don't agree with it and you want to follow the rules, but like, when you're doing something right and when you're doing something wrong, and when you're hanging around with the right people and the wrong people. And so you start with the basic thing of like, do you really want to be a good dude or a good woman or not? Because if you've got people around you that are dragging you into define it as lying, stealing, cheating, all those, drugs, whatever you want to get that into, you got to make that choice first, right? Past that though, then you go into which area really interests you, right? Yeah. And so a couple, one or two stories that's worth talking about here. There's always the phrase that came from a very wise guy in a book years ago. I think it's How to Win Friends and Influence People. But bottom line was that it says, show me your friends, I'll show you your future.
I love that.
I think that's something that you have to remind yourself by. And one of my buddies, Jim Reed, is a guy that lives out in Sacramento. He was telling me that he was running with the wrong crowd at a very young age, say early high school, when he was still had the ability kind of too much freedom, but so his parents let him do stuff. And one day he came home and his dad kind of stopped him. It was one of those moments that a lot of high schoolers have had. I've had, where you walk in, you're like, yeah, I got back way too late. I was definitely doing the wrong things. I got caught. Right.
Right.
And his dad said, hey, so I just want to let you know that this is going to end one of two ways. Like, you're going to end up dead or you're going to end up in prison. Hope it works out for you. And he's like, it was that abrupt. And Jim thought about it. And he literally says that was a turning point in his life, because he's like, you know what? I know that if I keep down this path, I will end up in jail or in prison. I know that. So now are you willing to do something about it? Which goes back to how I started this, right? Yeah. It's like, are you willing to do the work? Yes or no? Like, do you want to improve your situation? Or do you want to just say, woe is me, I was given a bad fucking life or a bad lot in life? And
which plays into the victim mentality, which is literally
it's gross. It's gross.
It's not fun.
And so like, just I want to paint a visual for people, because I think this is not picking on overweight people. It's not. It's a good visual, because there's a visceral reaction people get that I think we all get. I'll just point at myself. I get this. And I get two different. So let's just use the same person. Let's say this person is grossly obese, like 150 pounds over their weight they're supposed to be at. And let's say I go to any restaurant, I see that person sitting there eating 15 tacos and 15 margaritas and 15 fucking, like, just being bad. There's a visceral feeling I get from that. To me, that's just laziness, right?
Yeah.
I see the same person walking down the street, walking the dog.
I know.
I'm like, fuck yeah, good for you. Good for you.
Yeah.
So think about that, right? It's just the same person, but one version of that person is willing to do the work. One version of the person's just, I've got a bad thyroid, whatever. Right.
Right.
So it's just, I think that's something we've got to get to. And unfortunately, one truth I've always had about training in general, and you've heard me say this over the years, is I can teach anything but desire. Mm-hmm. And so it's at some core point, people have to make the decision of, I want more, I want better, I want improvement. If they can't ever get there, you can't ever help them. You just can't. And you see people that do this in prison, and they come out a better person. You see people in prison that come out with degrees.
Yeah.
And then you got some people that come out and they go right back to the old crap, because that's who I am.
For sure. Right? For sure. And I think too, a lot of times, or a lot of people maybe thinking like it's rock bottom we're talking about, like, oh, you got to hit rock bottom before you like decide to be better. Mm-hmm. And I just want to like, it certainly doesn't have to be like, nope. You can be in a good spot in lots of areas and still want to do a little better.
Yep.
Like, we talk a lot about the wheel of life. So your wheel could be round and it could be fairly large.
Right.
And there's still areas to improve. There's still areas to elevate. And I think that's where it kind of gets fun, right? Like,
yeah, but it also gets tiresome.
Oh, it's extremely exhausting. Yeah.
I do think gravity is real. And I only use gravity from a standpoint of inaction in long term inevitably ends up for the worse. Like if you put no additional effort into your marriage, over time, gravity's going to bring you down. Your marriage is going to get worse and worse and worse over time, right?
Yeah.
Put no additional effort into your business, and it will get worse over time. Put no additional effort into your weight, into your relationship with God, into your friendships. Put no additional effort, and over time, it will slowly degrade, right? So the point is, it requires a little bit of effort. It requires
it does. And the way that I look
area.
at the wheel of life, and the reason I love it so much is I'm a systems person. So developing a system in each area of the wheel of life, and just to kind of repeat for everybody or anybody that might be new listening, the wheel of life is 7 areas of life that you should constantly be working on. So
you can grade yourself on a semi-annual basis.
Yeah. Yep. On a scale of 1 to 10, where are you at? So self, money, relationships. Wait, it's not. What's marriage?
Yep. Well, it's self, love life, it's friends, it's family, it's work,
spirituality.
It's spirituality. That's 7.
That's 7. So, rating yourself in those areas, the way that I function, or the way that my brain works, is, okay, if there's a problem area, then what's a system I can work on to put in place that almost puts that area on autopilot. So like for money, the system that puts that on autopilot is a financial planner, meeting with you once a month.
Yep.
Like, as long as we do those 2 things and then do the assigned homework if given.
Yep. Things get better
over time. But it's a system, and and we have to put effort into it. With family or my friends, like as long as I text my friends, once a day or whatever, right? As long as we get together and go have lunch once a week. If we have a girls' trip annually, then that's what I'm doing to work on that piece. And it's where I like it. Like it's where I want it to be.
Yep. But it requires effort. And that's
but it does require effort. And so, but the longer you work on the system, the less effort it feels like you're putting in, because it's rolling.
Who you are.
Yeah, you got it rolling. Keep rolling, like because it's a wheel. Right. Keep rolling.
Yeah, I think if you can buy in the fact that anything worthwhile requires effort, then it's not a job anymore. Like being lazy in a relationship with my spouse never ends well.
Ugh,
right?
It just really doesn't.
And you can look either way, right? If you're when I'm lazy, when she's lazy, it just isn't exceptional. And so life is very freaking short. And when you put effort into things,
it's also so much more fun when things are good.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I just got back from a trip to Mexico with my spouse literally last night, right? And Christian and I had the first thing he asked me was like, "Hey, how was your weekend?" I was like, "I had a fabulous time. All we did was hang out. We snuck away like all the time. It was an amazing trip. It was just great." And it just, you know what? She likes to be around the kids and go to the kids' sports games, and so effort for her was, okay, I'm gonna miss out on a game or a practice,
right?
And she put a little bit of work into it, and it got better. And same thing, like I know that I want to be a busybody when I go on vacation. I want to go fishing and jumping out of planes and scuba diving and sailing and 100 different things. And she would rather just hang out with me and have room service and lay by the beach. And so guess what I did most of the time? I just kind of did.
Well done,
I did,
sir.
But that required effort. Like I'd get up in the morning, she'd still be sleeping.
Did you have to drug yourself?
No, I just told myself that the reward was worth it, and it was. It was just, but it took effort. That's the whole point. And so, then really you say, okay, I agree with Brynn and Josh that I need to elevate my game in at least these 3 areas. Then the next question or next step is then, okay, well, what should you be thinking about maybe, or what would be some examples? And then because after that, then you can decide what you're going to do, right? And so let's start with business first. I'm going to start with salaried employees because I think that, I know that the majority of the world is a salaried employee. And then I'll talk about self-employed after that, or commission type people after that. But for a salaried person, I think one of the missing problems, and this is because of my failure in leadership over the years as well, just something I had to recognize over the last couple, is that if you're not really clear about what your job duties are with a metric, and if your boss doesn't say the exact same thing with the same metric, and you're not being measured and like applauded or reprimanded on a regular basis about those metrics, it's really hard to win at a job.
Super
and so
hard.
there's quite often a huge disconnect because so many bosses like myself expect so much of everyone that works for me. And there's lots of extra things to do and side projects and things like that. But when it gets really busy, it really comes down to, well, did you do the top 3 jobs?
Right.
Yes or no? Because if the boss knows that you're doing the top 3 jobs and you're doing the top 3 jobs very well based on a measurement, then if somebody else falls with the sideline for a moment, it's not a big deal because you're crushing your job. And so, think about if you're listing and you're a list person. There's a lot of people that love the idea of I start my day with the list and I get to check off my entire list by the end of the day. Mm-hmm. Well, what if the list is in the wrong order? What if the list wasn't in alignment with what the top job duties are? What if the list was in alignment with what would be required to get a future promotion, right? Like if
or
you're
by
not
due date,
all those things.
What's the next thing that
yes,
it's got a due date on it? You got to do that first.
There's a few things that you self-sabotage with that, right? Like people on my team have expressed like if they don't knock out their entire to-do list, they feel anxiety and they feel depressed and they feel like they failed. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, how many things do you do today? It's like 19. Well, how many things did you have to do today? It's like 23. It's like, you're pissed off about what? Like you did the top 3 things first. So I don't care. Like you crushed it, right? Yeah. So I would start with like, do you actually know what your top job duties are in order of importance based on what the boss dictates, not what you think they are? Is there a measurement to it? Are you measured on it on a regular basis? And is there improvement plans in place for that? Yes or no? If you don't have that, start there. Because if you can get that nailed down, at least you know that you and your boss are jiving. At least you know if you are on the shit list or on the, thumbs up list. At least you know that, like, you would think of it this way in reverse. Would you ever considering asking your boss for a raise, ever, if you knew that you were failing at your job? Right? But think about this. What the boss's expectations were one thing, and you had what you thought your job was a different thing. So you think you're crushing it, and you go ask the boss for a raise.
Yeah.
And the boss is looking at you like, are you out of your damn mind?
Yeah, what the hell?
Like there's a disconnect.
There's a disconnect.
You got to solve that disconnect between the person that has direct impact on the ability to make money.
Yeah.
Right? The second piece of that component is because it brings happiness. Like we are hardwired to add value. Mm-hmm. Like humans get an immediate satisfaction and joy out of adding value.
Yeah.
And so when you know
doing
what,
a good job and being told
if you know,
well done.
Right. Like it is one of the love languages after all, right?
Yeah.
But
he's talking about words of affirmation.
Words of affirmation. Yep.
And the 5 Love Languages is a book that is fantastic. So if you haven't read it, make sure you read it.
And there's the 5 love languages at work too.
At work. So, and for children.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that you start with the relationship with the boss, then you look at your personal satisfaction in the workplace, right? So if you know that you're doing it and you're doing it well based on the measurement at stake, then you can go home every day and say, hey, I did my job. My job is good enough. And this will remove a sense of anxiety or stress or things like that.
The other thing that clarity in your job duties brings is when shit gets really out of whack. Yep. Like it's very easy to see when there's been too many things accumulated onto your plate. And so that's just a conversation. It's an opportunity to say, oh, okay, like can't get to the top 3 because of all these things. Let's reprioritize or redefine timelines or something.
Remove stuff because you want me to stay focused on the top 3.
Remove it. Right. So bringing that back to like elevating your game, like think about how much of an elevation you would have if you're sitting there as someone saying, well, I don't know what my top 3 job duties are and I don't have any metrics. So your elevation would be to come up with your top 3 job duties as you see them and what you think you're measured on and present that to your boss. Like that is a huge elevation. Like that puts you in a different league, right? Yep. If you're the boss that's like, oh shit, like I don't think anybody could repeat what their top 3s are, then your elevation would be to
provide that for all of your employees,
to develop that for every single person.
Yep. And what that's doing is ultimately it is giving clarity, it's giving satisfaction, it's giving opportunities for advancement. It removes stress. If you as a boss have to remove somebody, like if you have to let somebody go, but it was really clear to you and them of what the job duties were and they were failing at their job duties, you can remove the emotional component. Right. Or no, you can't remove it because I'm a people person, but you can at least diminish it because, this is just not the right person for the job.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think even if you do have that emotional component and you're like, and it's gone on too long, at some point your logical side will kick in. It'll be painful enough to be paying out money and not getting the result that you want.
Paying for. Yeah.
But here's what's going to happen in the meantime. You're either going to have the conversation with that person and find the disconnect, and it'll get better. Or they're going to continue to suck.
Yep.
And then you're really like totally okay with them being gone.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Like,
so starting in business, that'd be one area to really focus on. Another area in the business world that I really focus on would be thinking about what the next step is and what skill sets you would need to develop to get there, right? So, a lot of people sit around waiting for things to come to them, and the old adage is nothing good comes to those who wait, right? And it doesn't mean that you should rush through the process, because I can argue the other side very, very easily. And you and I are on the same page here where, if you believe in the law of 10,000 hours, there's no fast way to get to the 10,000 hours. You just have to do 10,000 hours to be a master, right?
Right.
Because it takes exactly 10,000 hours to make 10,000 hours. And people try to sidecut that because of a sense of entitlement or boredom or whatever. And there's a girl on my team that I really think is doing a fabulous job. And I just for privacy, I'm going to keep her name out of it. But
oh, come on. Just say her. I'm kidding.
Right. Just for privacy. I think she's doing a fabulous job. And I know that she wants to be at a different position, and I want her to be in a position different as well as a loan officer one day. But there's in order to be a loan officer, you need to learn so many things about taking in a lead, scripts about that, working on files, understanding credit, understanding income, assets, credit, all of this stuff to be a loan officer. You just can't sidestep that and be a good loan officer. So, we're already a year and a half into training, and, I can see her biting at the bit, and she's ready. Yeah. And it's I love that, and I love that. And we still need 6 more months probably to get you where you need to be. And
that's the hardest thing. When we hire somebody new, everybody's anxiety in those first 3, 4, 6 weeks is, I just wish it was 4 months from now. I just know, it is grueling to sit in a training type position. So it's just a real. Yeah,
but what's interesting is, going back to the elevation piece, it's amazing to me how many people I tell the same homework assignment to do to speed things up, and they don't do it. So you've heard me say 1,000 times. By the way, if you're listening, let me give you a helping hint. I've only said this for fucking 15 years.
Let me guess. Wait, let me guess.
Go ahead.
Read the FHA handbook.
Yep.
Did I get it right?
100%. So you want to be a loan officer one day ever. And you want to learn a little bit about a lot of stuff.
I read that, bitch.
You read the FHA handbook, and it tells you a lot of stuff that no loan officers ever, I bet you if I were to poll every loan officer in the country that I bet you it's less than 1%, probably 1 in 1,000 loan officers actually read the FHA handbook. And so that's an example. It's boring material, and yes, it's complicated if you don't know what the acronyms are and so on. But while you're training, when you have a down moment because your manager is off today or sick today or is working on something else, so they can't train you right the second. If you just sat there for that hour,
I had it on my phone
every single day.
It was a app on your. It wasn't an app, but
no, it's a PDF that you can
download. PDF that you just put onto your home screen.
And so the idea is, if you just spent that extra hour, squeeze in a little bit of home study, a little bit of work study, do it while you're at lunch, and you did that, then that 2-year process might only take 18 months because of the little shit that you do. And so when you think about elevating in that area, that's what I mean by seek other people out. So if you think about who is ultimately the COO of a company, right? Who rises to that position in most cases? The answer is the person that knows how to do everything. The person that literally knows the front end, the back end, the in-between, the how to sell stuff, the how to bring stuff in, the how to communicate, the HR stuff, the how to pay people. That's who the CEO is the person that knows a little bit about everything, right? And so if you're thinking about how do I move my way up in an organization over time, then if you've got extra time, shadow your neighbor. Ask somebody that's in a position you might want to be at someday, if you can just follow them around for a day, one of your days off. And God forbid you would want to, anyone ever ask for that little nugget, but that's the things I mean by moving the needle. So going back to a statement I'm going to say 5 more times this hour, it's control the controllables. Don't worry about what you can't. You can't pick when you're there are some jobs that the boss has to die or retire for you to get their job. So you can't pick, well, hopefully you can't pick when they're going to die. Otherwise you're going to prison. But you can't really pick when they're going to die or retire. But what you can do is be ready when they are.
Yeah.
So, what if you waited your whole life? You're like, one day I'm gonna get the opportunity to run this company or this retail store, or this manager position. One day, someday. And then that person quit. The person that needed to be out of the way quit, died, retired, got COVID. And the boss is looking around like, hey, who's next in line? Well, you don't have the skill set yet. So now I'm gonna have to hire. Now I'm gonna have to hire someone from outside. What a miss.
Or from another state or country or whoever to fill.
Because you weren't ready because you didn't put the time in ahead of time.
I'm ready. Put me in, coach. Be ready.
Practice on my business. No thanks.
Be right. Right.
Be ready. So, that's an example of something you can do to elevate your game. And we're going to talk about this for an entire, run of episodes. So I'm not going to dive too much into that piece. I want to also kind of go to the next step, which is, working on self. Right. So you threw two categories in this. This is self-help, and it's also like spirituality probably and personal health, all kind of fall in that same self category. Mm-hmm. And the elevation of the game here is this. One of the best things that one of my counselors, because yes, I get counseling because I'm a crazy person sometimes. Everyone will tell you I have my moments.
You?
Yeah.
People refer to you as crazy?
Well,
that's weird.
Some people have said worse of me,
news,
right?
That's news to me.
That's news to you? So, one of the best things a counselor ever told me ever was you can't make other people happy, nor is it your job to make other people happy.
Correct.
They have to be happy, which ultimately means, Josh, it's no one else's job to make you happy. They can't make you happy. I mean, it's your choice to be happy.
The best thing my counselor ever told me was, you are working really hard to make others change, and that's not a thing. So the only person you can change is yourself.
That's right.
And your expectations. I'm like, okay, cool. Thanks. Yep. Got it.
Yeah. One of the best marriage tips I've been given, and so I give out a lot right now, is be in the position to give the best version of yourself to your spouse. Because if you give the best version of yourself to your spouse and they start working themselves and they give the best version of themselves to you, then most likely it'll work out. Yeah. And so, the way I would kind of approach this in your mindset is, if you went back to the first date, like the first real date, like not when you met him in the bar, but like you actually went out on a date with somebody. If you go back to the first day with your spouse or your significant other right now, and think about what behavior you're on. Like you probably opened the door, you probably pulled out the chair, you probably dressed up, put a little extra effort into what you wore, how you looked. Yeah. You were probably super kind in all your words, which I'm guilty of sometimes, right? I can be bad about that sometimes. And, you think about what you would never do on a first date, that why would you do that later? Yeah. It's like you present the best version of yourself early on. Why wouldn't you keep doing that? And so I think it's a really good mental picture that I have to live in. I don't know if you have any other little tips from that.
So, I think that's perfect. The other side of the coin that I think is important to remember is being the best version of yourself for where you're at in your relationship or meeting your spouse where they need you. I have seen so often, with friends, just among our group and just in our sphere or whatever, when things start to go bad, mm-hmm. people bail. Yep. And I think Easily.
It's sad.
And it's not for wrong reasons. Like, let me be clear about that. Like, spouses start to do really shitty things, and the divorce is valid. It's valid. Like, in every form you can define it as, it's valid.
Sometimes.
But it doesn't mean it's right, Yep. So I think recognizing when your spouse is down and like when they're really struggling with something, and trying to meet them there and bring them up rather than be so angry at what they've caused for you or your kids or your family, or it's not what you signed up for. I'm using air quotes. I think that's a way to elevate as well. Like, you need to, and I'm not by any means saying stay in a horrible relationship, like, not at all. But what I'm saying is, I think part of our jobs as partners and spouses is to be there for them and try to pick them up when they're not being themselves, and trying to figure out what that reason is, because you know who you married. So what has changed, right? Meet them there. And I think we're quick to get, especially with our spouses, it's the blame game, or we take it super personal. Their behavior is personal.
Right.
And it's not looking at, well, what's going on? What changed? Like, what is causing this behavior out of you? So I think it's important. And I feel like you have something to say because you're like pondering.
Well, I love what you had to say. And in general, I think that I would agree with you in general. I think that there's very, 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 very few real reasons for divorce. So starting there with a different mindset, like, and you said, hey, there's lots of reasons to get divorced. I think there's very, very few.
I think there's very few too.
Right.
There's lots of reasons given.
Oh, for sure. Okay,
lots
so
of reasons
that's
given.
Where I was biting my tongue.
There's lots of reasons given.
Yeah.
I think people are really quick to pull
here's
the
the
plug.
thing. It's okay. So how long did it take to slide to get to the point where you made a bad choice, or they made a bad choice, or what was always happening for the months or years that you did nothing and they did nothing to get to the point where you would actually say that horrible shit to your spouse, right?
Right.
And so where was the effort then? Because you're focused on this moment when you look at the 2 years or 3 years or 5 years of bad thoughts, bad behaviors, and no effort. And that goes back to where you start with everything good requires effort.
It does.
Everything
and so
good requires
if you
effort.
if you're in a relationship and things all of a sudden are terrible,
it wasn't all of a sudden terrible.
It wasn't all of a sudden terrible, and that wasn't how it started. So
Right.
like trying to remember that you hand selected this human
Yep.
to live your life with.
Yep.
There was something that made you hand select
And maybe
them.
if you're dating right now, like listen to our words, like take longer hand selecting if you're unsure.
Hand selected. My favorite thing is like when Randy's being really weird or like doing something, I'm like,
I chose you.
Hand selected, ladies and gentlemen. Like, this was super intentional.
That's pretty funny, actually. I need to do that more often. I'm sure Christy does that all the time with me. But yeah, so you go down that road. And it's like, okay, so now we're thinking about how we elevate our game at home. How do we elevate our game with workouts? How do you elevate your game with your with spirituality? So I'd limp those, and also on like just personal improvement in general. Like, what are those things? So I think that the idea of being intentional about a side passion is really important for our health. You think about how many times people have said, man, I wish I could play the guitar. It's like, well, cool, go fucking buy one. They're $200 and you can learn on YouTube. We've already established, right? So like, stop talking about the things you're going to one day do and like, just start doing. I care so little about the talkers and the dreamers. I just don't. I love dreaming big.
Yeah.
But only if I see actual actionable items being taken, right? And so the piece there becomes what's the goal or vision? What is the plan, and are you executing or not? Like the number of times I've said, hey, you have no permission to bitch about your circumstance if you've done nothing about it the last 90 days. I'll give you a great aside. This is a business statement because all my coaching students have heard this before in the past. It's like, hey, the first question I ask every single coaching student, every single call is outside of how are you, is what's the biggest issue in your business today? And so I'm just going to ask you guys. So what is your biggest issue with yourself? What's your biggest issue? If you're listening, jot down something, like anything. What's the biggest issue with yourself? We all have a big hole. So maybe you're not an ideal weight. Maybe you haven't been to church, or maybe you don't believe in God, or maybe you're not in a great relationship with your spouse, or I don't care what's your biggest issue, right? So the follow-up question always is, cool, what have you done about it in the last 7 days?
Yeah.
What have you actually done about it in the last 7 days? So if you're in the camp of, well, actually, I've done A, B, C, D, and E, kudos. Then you just haven't done it long enough, or it's just not the right plan. So let's relook at the plan and see if it's the right plan to fix the issue, or if it's the right plan, then just requires more time. So don't give up. Like, keep kudos. Like, just keep grinding.
Right.
If the flip side is, well, this is the biggest issue of my whole life, and I've done nothing about it, well, stop bitching then.
Do you ever hear people say, I don't really care about fixing it right now?
Yeah, because that's fine with me, because that just tells me that that's not their biggest issue.
It's not the biggest issue.
Because when you go down to it, the only reason why you wouldn't fix your biggest issue in your life is because you're afraid of that process. So I would just because we're talking about marriage, there are people that literally won't get divorced because they're afraid of the conversation, right? Like, they're so afraid of, like, what's going to happen with my relationship, what's going to happen with my kids, what's going to happen with my money, what's going to happen. They're so afraid of that they don't take the action, as an example, right? Yeah. So, like, here's the truth. I've asked for raises before that I didn't get. You've asked for raises before you didn't get. Like, just because we ask for something doesn't mean we're going to get it, right? And so, but I'd rather ask and like find out how to get there eventually than to never have the conversation.
Yeah.
And so, there's a billion memes that we don't need to quote that basically say like it's way worse to have tried and not succeeded than never try at all.
Right.
Right. There's a billion versions of that. Mm-hmm. And the problem is that, the full 60% or more of the world is fear-based. Right. And so that fear is overwhelming and they're not willing to do it. Or take that first step. They're so afraid. And
I think too, this ties into timing. Like I am just such a freak about timing is everything. Like I just don't believe that there's a lot of coincidences. I think that everything happens for a reason and timing is a huge piece of that. So if there's something in my life that's just not like jiving, and maybe I have worked on something to fix it and it's still not working, or I just can't find the rhythm, then sometimes it's like, this is not the right time for this. We don't have all the pieces that we need. There's something missing, and kind of like not going to like, well, whatever, can't control it, so don't worry about it, but focusing. Sideburn.
But I know you'd only refocus if there's something else better to focus on at the time.
Yeah.
Like, so the timing, like, I can give 100 examples with you, like, because you're really good at this. So, CRM system, just for business. It's easy conversation. So if CRM is a client management tool, basically, and it's a way to keep in touch with past clients and follow up with agents and things like that. It's something we use. And we've never been a tech company ever. We're a relationship company. And I love talking to people, and I like belly to belly, and I think that people work with people they know, like, and trust, and I'm fine with that. And I don't, quote unquote, need a CRM system, except that it helps your business, it helps your relationships, it helps maintain those relationships that you say you care about. So we had to.
Leverages time.
It's all there's so many benefits. So we finally took on the monster, right? It was like, hey, Brynn, like, how fast do you think you can do this? Like, I think about 6 months, and about 9 days in, it's like, no, it's going to take about a year. It's like, well, let's, I didn't push that because I knew that Brynn was working on other things that were more important to our business at the time. And so it's like, that's what she means by the timing's not right. We don't have the pieces. I need more knowledge, need more time with our developer, need more, like, there's a lot of conversations that happen. And so
that was good clarity. Like,
you would only ever do that if it's not the biggest issue. Yeah. Right. But where I like lose interest, I lose interest with people that, they will complain about something, and there's generally speaking
or like the ship is sinking and they won't go find a rock.
Great example. I hate this for people because people die all the time from this. My side's been hurting for 9 months. Well, have you been to the doctor? No.
That's terrifying.
Why don't you want to go to the doctor? Well, because I'm afraid what they'll find. It's like, well, fuck, man. If it's not getting better, let's fucking go to the doctor and do something about it, right? Like, let's just find out.
It's so scary though.
But think about it, right? Well, Christy falls into this camp. Christy's, God bless her. She just has a fear of doctors, a fear of dentists, like a fear of it. Yeah. And so she goes too long before she goes back and do it. And usually I've got to set the appointment or kick her butt to do it because I know, like, you address issues head on because they don't generally get better. Right?
They don't. This goes into like one of the sections of the Wheel of Life is self. And so like I know both of you and I see the same doctor, and part of his practice is prevention. It's health not health prevention.
No, it's
preventative. It's preventative health. That's what it is. Preventative health. So he like puts us on these systems and makes us do these things that
test blood once a year, mandatory follow-up appointments.
Got to do a physical, like got to do the EKG. And let me tell you one thing, like if for anything, I like when it's physical season, I'm like, I gotta get ready for my physical. So you like, it's just a mindset of like, okay, I gotta, but that, I mean, as stupid as it is, it's not a bad thing, like, okay, I gotta get ready to like show up at the doctor and like show them how good I've been doing, but the preventative piece is huge because as we all know, the earlier you catch things, the better. So like, nip it.
Well, a great analogy, because I think it works the same in all areas, right? Is it's amazing to me how fast you can gain weight and how long it takes to actually healthily get it off, right?
Yeah.
And so if you say the same thing with money, if you say the same thing with your marriage, you say the same thing with
sports.
your friendships or sports
I just
or
had this conversation with Weston.
whatever, the longer you ignore it and you don't take action, the harder and longer it's going to take times 2, 3, or 4 to get back to where you just want to be. And so, something I've said in previous seasons a lot is like, fear is not a reason to do or not do anything. It's just the devil. Like, just call it what it is. It's, and if you're not spiritual, then just take my word for it. Fear's not a reason to do or not do anything. So look at a big picture and say, is what I'm doing getting me where I want to be or not? Is what I'm doing. Not, golly gee whiz, I hope I fucking get blank.
Yeah.
Like, is what you're doing right now.
Elevate and have the conversation, or go to the doctor, or get the checkup, like whatever you need to do.
Is what I'm doing right now getting me the results I want?
Practice your game.
Is what I'm doing right now getting me what I want? Is what I'm doing right now getting me what I want? If not, change it. Like, change it. Don't settle. Yeah, I think that's worth it. We can kind of close the book on that. So I would go down the list of, so far we've covered a little bit about work and a little bit about self, and you can weave in spirituality and weight in that area. Well, you just ask yourself, is what's my biggest issue today? So maybe your biggest issue in health right now is just you drink too much. Okay, well, just be better. So
do better.
Like, take off a day or two. Like, start small and work from there. Maybe
I do think that is key, and I think we all misstep here. It's and it's the beginning of the year, so here's the laundry list of things that I'm going to change and do differently. Yep. And that ultimately, it's overwhelming
yep.
and it's a total shock to your system.
Yep.
And it's unfeasible. So finding 1 or 2 small things you can do, like as an example, so baseball season just started. There's a lot of, late nights eating at concession stands. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do the intermittent fasting thing. Like, I'm going to try to not eat during these hours, because that will make me avoid the things that come with this particular schedule. So rather than trying to force my way into the same diet that I always do during this season, that is always a struggle, let's change it. Let's just
Tweaks.
try this. Let's
Tweaks,
try
not changes.
this. Yeah, let's try this. Let's go this direction.
And here's where I'd go, because you use the baseball stuff. My son's in Little League right now, and I had a conversation with him last night at a game, and he was complaining about his place in the lineup, and complaining to me, not to the coach. He's talking to me about on the way home. He's like, I don't get it. Like, this kid is like the 5th person in the lineup, and I'm the 6th person in the lineup, and he doesn't hit it very, very far. And I said, well, and I was just being direct with Mason, because I love my son, love my son. And in the previous 2 games, he struck out, I think 3 times, not swing at the 3rd strike. And that nothing grates at me more. Like, I don't care if you strike out, just fucking swing. Swing it, right?
Down swinging.
Right. And so I literally told him, I flat out, I said, well, that kid swings at every single ball. That's why the coach puts him at number 5 and you at number 6. You pick, and it's got to be a perfect ball. And when you do hit it, you clock it. But this guy, by the action of just swinging a lot, hits some. So you miss a. God, I'm doing too many quotes today, so I'm not going to even do that one. Yes, you can fill in the blank. You can definitely fill in the blank with that one. But I'm just trying to.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
That's right. That's exactly right. And I want my son to understand this. And so
hashtag predictable.
We were talking about it, and at the end of last game, I literally said, as a coach, I try to find the buttons to motivate. Right now, my son's trying to save money for one day having a car when he's 16, and he's 11 right now.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so I said,
that's like a lofty thing. Weston's saving for a new computer, really.
We're on it, so literally I told him, hey, bud, I've got your savings account. You know that, right? And he said, yep. I said, cool. If you strike out without swinging, I'm taking $20 out of your savings account.
Oh, damn.
And I said, if you swing, I'm gonna give you $20. Damned if the kid didn't swing at every single ball. He hit it. He hit one in the outfield. Right?
I want to play that game.
It's just like, dude, take some shots and it'll work out. I'm so glad it worked out too, because literally he bombed one out in the right field. But it's something that I hope some of you guys are listening. Whether you played baseball at some point, or you've got a kid that did, or you just get the concept. Yeah. Stop complaining about your situation and just stand idle.
Swing the bat.
You gotta swing. You gotta do something. Do something. Do anything. Go back to that story I just talked about. Yeah. I applaud the obese man that's on the walk.
Dude,
applaud that guy. I'm always
you get Dad. I'm so proud of you.
Dude, he's doing. And I'm serious about that. This is not me trying to be like a mean person. I'm so like, good for you.
Good for you.
Good for
I
you.
freaking love it.
So don't tolerate other areas any differently. What's really interesting to me is that most everyone's good at one area. So maybe you're just like the friend. Like you're really good at always in conversation, always caring, know all your friends' kids' names, know all the birthdays, like all the, like, think about this. Yeah. There are some people that are amazing friends that show up to everything, every birthday, like they would never miss, right? And they struggle in other areas, right? And there's some people that are amazing in business, amazing at making money or saving money, and they are just wasting their relationship with their kids or with their spouse. And they're really bad in those areas. Or there's some people, I've got a good friend of mine for about a decade now that is an evangelist, and he is really good at evangelizing. I enjoy conversation with him. Dude can't raise $1 for his cause to save his life. It's like, man, if you would just like learn a couple other skills, you could help what matters to you most faster, right? So there's the yin and yang for all of us. And what I found is that some people are so focused on what they're good at because it's easy and comes naturally that they don't focus on these other areas. And because of that, they're constantly struggling and they don't get better. And so the challenge is to raise raise your game in all these areas, not just picking one. Right?
I love it. All right. So I think that's a wrap on our first episode.
Yeah, first episode back.
So just a few reminders, subscribe to the channels and find us on all the social media platforms. Lots of content is delivered there. And if you have a topic or question or want more information
or
about
disagree,
anything,
it's okay to disagree too.
I mean, disagree with us. That's actually kind of fun for us. I mean, it's fun for me because normally people disagree with him.
But we love you, and please subscribe and share and communicate.
Yes, and then be on the lookout for the Shorts channel. Short Sense is the name. So it's attached to the Sigman Sense channel. Other than that, cheers. Thank y'all for listening.
We'll see you next time, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.